Thank you very much. Esteemed Dr. Saxena, Chair of the panel, esteemed co-panelists, Mr. Agnihotri, Convener of the conclave, and dear fellow educators. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here to address you through this video conferencing system and to listen to your views and opinions on how to build 50 global business schools in India. I have had the privilege of being educated on 3 different continents. I got my bachelor's degree in India, my master's degree in Spain at ESA Business School, and my PhD in the United States. And I've also had the opportunity of working in many different countries in the world. In the last 7 years, I've been living in China, in Shanghai, as a professor at the China-Europe International Business School. And today I would like to share with you some thoughts on how the Chinese educational system has upgraded itself. As you know, the 2 countries, China and India, are very similar in size in terms of population and also face very similar challenges in terms of having to develop managers to be competent and to be effective in managing enterprises. And so I think it would be interesting for you to know a little bit about what China has done in the last few years. Let me start by answering the question that I think Dr. Saxena has posed very well, which is what exactly do we mean by global business schools and why are they desirable? So let me first answer the question, why are they desirable? And I hope you can see my slide 2. The title of the slide is Why Are Global Business Schools Desirable? And here I simply state what is very obvious, that since the economic reforms began more than 20 years ago in India, our economy has integrated more and more with global trade and investment flows. Our exports have gone up dramatically from barely 18 billion to the latest figure in 2013 is more than 300 billion. And our imports have similarly gone up. Our international trade, that is exports plus imports, used to represent less than 20% of our GDP in 1991. Today it represents about nearly 45%. Similarly, the inflow of foreign direct investment into India has gone up dramatically from just 130 million in 1991 to more than 30 billion in the last few years, and it looks like that's going to continue growing in the future. Indian companies, as we all know, have also been very active in investing outside India. The Tatas have been at the forefront, but the Tatas have not been the only corporate body from India doing this. The Birlas and many other companies have made investments abroad. And what this means is that there's going to be a growing demand for managers in India who can operate comfortably on the global stage, who can identify opportunities in any part of the world, execute on those opportunities, and who can work both as leaders and as team members in international teams. And business schools simply have to cater to this need, which is why we need to be global. Now, if we can go to my slide 3, which is the essential characteristics of a global business school, the bare minimum, I would say, is that a global business school should have an international student body, international faculty, and internationally benchmarked governance. Now, the school where I had the opportunity of doing my MBA, ESA Business School, in its last intake, 2013, had 56 nationalities represented in the MBA class. At CEIBS, we cap the international students to 40% of the intake, and we had 21 nationalities in last year's intake, with the India being one of the biggest contingents. We receive a lot of Indian students, but other countries and regions from which students come are the United States, Western Europe, and South Korea. We need, a global business school needs international faculty, and here I would put less of an emphasis on a number of nationalities and more on an international or a global mindset. We need people who have operated, been educated in, and have managed or have taught in many different countries in the world, who are experienced in researching international topics, who consult with international companies, and who educate managers from international companies. Very important, they should contribute to new knowledge creation on management. Now, faculty members of Indian origin are at the forefront of contributing to the creation of new knowledge on management. Unfortunately, most of these researchers are based outside India. And finally, they also need to be willing to mentor junior faculty. Finally, we need internationally benchmarked governance, which means that we need diversity in our leadership, in the leadership of our academic institutions, both in terms of gender and nationality. And we also need a meritocracy in administrative and faculty appointments. Now, how do we attract international students? There are two parts to this. The first is the attractiveness of the country itself. And in this respect, India's attractiveness as a destination has gone up in the last 20 years since our economic reforms began. India's stature in international trade and investment has grown. More and more Indian companies are internationalizing. And there is an improvement in the ecosystem. The quality of our schooling has improved. We have many international schools in many Indian cities. The infrastructure is improving, although perhaps less rapidly than we would like. Environmental issues continue to be a problem in India, and we must address them. The quality of water and the quality of air. As you all know, it is the younger generation. The younger generation is very, very fussy about these things, much more so than perhaps our generation. And then we need good leisure and cultural opportunities to attract international students. And then there is the competitiveness of the business school itself. And here, what are international students looking for? They're looking for a high global rankings, such as the FT rankings or the Economist rankings. They are looking for international accreditation, which is something that very few Indian business schools have addressed. They're looking for internationally well-known faculty, internationally benchmarked curricula, and very important, career services. So when we come to India from CEIBS on MBA tours, trying to recruit very good Indian students, the first question that the Indian students ask us is to share with them our placement data for foreign students. So as we all know, Indian students are very particular about this. You know, they still believe that it is the obligation. It's an obligation of the business school to actually place them, and therefore career services are very, very important. And of course, they look for high quality infrastructure in terms of classrooms, accommodation, and services, and catering services, for example. We'll go to slide 5, attracting international faculty. When it comes to attracting international faculty, again, there are two components, the country attractiveness and the business school attractiveness. The country attractiveness is the same. International faculty members would come to India for pretty much the same reasons that international students would. When it comes to business school attractiveness, of course, faculty members are looking for something different. Now, is it possible for an Indian business school to attract international faculty and give them low teaching loads, as low as 100 hours per year? This is what faculty members from top PhD programs are being offered by other leading business schools when they are being recruited. The reason for this low teaching load obviously is that they want to spend the rest of the time publishing in the top journals, which is going to increase their employability. They want a strong research culture and good research support in the form of high quality research assistants, budgets for travel to conferences, budgets for the purchase of databases. And it goes without saying that today a business school must have very high quality internet infrastructure and access to all the databases of journals such as EBSCO, such as ProQuest, JSTOR, etc. A high quality internet connection and access to journals, e-journals, has leveled the playing field in the developing world with respect to the developed world. I got my PhD from the University of Virginia, and the University of Virginia has something like 3 million periodicals and journals in the library. Now, very few universities in the developing world can afford this kind of investment. But the investment in a high quality internet infrastructure and access to high quality journal databases is all that we need now. Everything is now available at our desktop. International faculty are looking for faculty-led governance. Now, there are many business schools, many educational institutions in India that have come up being promoted by business houses, and that is very good. But one concern of faculty members is what type of governance are these educational institutions going to have? Is it going to be more based on commercial criteria, or is it going to be based on academic criteria? That's something that's very important. They want competitive compensation, obviously, and international accreditation, which enhances their own reputation. Now, Indian returnees, those who train in PhD programs in the top universities outside India, many of them are willing to come back for family reasons, and that's a good opportunity for India to attract international faculty. Let me share with you now some evidence from China, and we'll go to slide number 6. I'll first share with you what the Chinese government has done as a whole to improve the quality of universities in China, and then I'll share with you an example of a public university in China and what steps they have taken to become more international. So to begin with, in 1995, China introduced what is called Project 211, which was designed to develop certain key universities. And between 1996 and 2000, they spent $2.2 billion in upgrading a selected number of universities. Today, there are 118 universities representing 6% of the total, which come under the 211 list. A second program, a very ambitious program, was launched in 1998 called Project 985 under the leadership of President Jiang Zemin, under which both the central government and the provincial governments, which are the equivalent of our state governments, invested money to upgrade their universities. Just to give you an idea, the top 2 universities in China, Peking University and Tsinghua University, each received $1.8 billion. Fudan University and Shanghai Jiaotong University, both based in Shanghai, received each $1.2 billion. And today there are 39 universities that are part of this 985 list. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Indian government should invest this kind of money, because we all know that India's fiscal situation is not as strong as China's, and perhaps our primary education needs more funding than our tertiary education. I just want to highlight with this the resoluteness that has been shown by the Chinese government in upgrading its universities and the resources that they've dedicated to this. Let's go to slide number 7, and I'll here talk about a public university, Peking University, and the Guanghua School of Management, which is the business school, and what steps they have taken to upgrade their quality. So they did something that would be unthinkable in India. So in the late 1990s, Peking University introduced a dual-track faculty system, whereby every new faculty member hired after 1999 would be on a much higher salary than the faculty who were hired previously, most of them from local universities. In return for this much higher compensation, they were expected to deliver a much higher research output in international peer-reviewed journals. Now, between 2001 and 2007, 46 foreign-educated faculty were hired by the Guanghua School of Management. Most of these 46 faculty members were Chinese who had gone to study abroad, and most of them still are at the Guanghua School of Management. There have been a couple of departures, but not many. Over time, the compensation between these what are called the post-99 hires and the pre-99 hires has narrowed. Currently, full professors at the Guanghua School of Management, and I want to insist, the Guanghua School of Management is the business school of a public university in China. They make approximately $100,000 US. Now, the other faculties, such as history or mathematics or physics, in these faculties, professors are not making these kinds of salaries. So, even within the public university system in China, there is great inequality across faculties. Now, let's go to my slide number 8, where I talk about the importance of a sound economic model to achieve global standards. Now, as we all know, hiring highly qualified faculty members from the best institutions and giving them low teaching loads and high research support is very expensive. Investing in infrastructure, procuring land is very expensive. And then hiring high quality non-academic staff to support the faculty members for program management, admissions and so on is also very expensive. So it's very important for schools to evolve sound economic models to address these issues. Peking University, public university, charges $30,000 for its full-time MBA program and more than $80,000 for its executive MBA program. By comparison, I just looked up the website of the Faculty of Management Studies, FMS, which is a very high-quality business school in India, top ranked. FMS is charging for a 2-year program a total of $350 for the MBA program and $1,600 for the EMBA. Now the question that we have to ask is, how are public universities going to have the resources to invest in faculty, infrastructure and support staff if they charge fees that are so low? We all remember the controversy that was created some years ago when the IIMs raised their fees several-fold. But in my opinion, the IIMs have been on a more sustainable path thanks to that increase in fees. My next slide just illustrates to you the size of the EMBA programs at different Chinese universities. CEIBS is one of the largest EMBA programs in the world. We recruit 755 students. Our fees is close to $100,000. This is the annual intake. Peking University recruits 420 EMBA students every year, and therefore the income from the EMBA program alone is in excess of $30 million. And as you can see, the Chinese universities all have fairly high EMBA intakes. Now to summarize, I think the Indian policymakers need to think carefully about how the quality of Indian higher education institutions can be raised. Clearly we don't have the kind of resources that the Chinese government has plowed into the university system here. I'm not even sure that that's such a good idea, even if we had the money to pour in such large amounts of money, because I would like to see the cost-benefit analysis of that investment. And I'm not sure that the cost-benefit analysis is that great. As I said earlier, our fiscal situation is much weaker, so we need to be much more careful with our money. I believe India has an advantage with respect to China, and that is that the presence of the private sector in the educational system, in the higher education system, is very strong in India. And the government needs to think very carefully, the policymakers need to think very carefully about how to harness the energies and the resources of the private sector to achieve national goals. There is one possible game changer that could help India, and that is technology-enabled delivery of education. Now this could change completely the economic model of education delivery. We know that technology-enabled delivery is technically feasible, but institutions all over the world are struggling to identify a good business model to make it work. I think the best thing that Indian policymakers could do is allow the Indian academic institutions, both public and private, to experiment with technology-enabled delivery of education. With that, let me conclude my address. I look forward to listening to the other speakers and to, if there's time, to take questions from the audience. Thank you very much.